It's an online independent article, so you know it's going to be nonsense. To the barricades, why the perilous 2020s are likely to spawn beautiful art, films and music marked by rage and escapism. From the outset, I'm going to call bullshit on this. And I'll tell you why from the outset, before we even get into this. I've skimmed this article, as I usually do with a lot of articles. I like my real-time reactions to be what is happening. Sometimes I'm on point, sometimes I'm kind of off point. But it's knowledge and ignorance, baby. That is the beautiful tapestry of life. That's why I'm entertaining. In 2008, 2009, we had the devastating worldwide depression, or as some like to call it, recession. Or at the time, I don't know if you remember this, it was called the credit crunch. Remember when they gave it a really snappy title? You know, the global recession was the credit crunch. It's okay, it's just a credit crunch. Don't worry, Woolworths is closed. It's a credit crunch. That's what they called it. Gave it a nice snappy title so everyone wasn't so scared. And what happened after the credit crunch? Well, Woolworths closed and Lehman Brothers went. And that was about it, really, as far as I remember. But anyway, I was at music college. I was at the Academy for Contemporary Music, which is doing music production. Previous alumni includes Ed Sheeran for 2 months and Newton Faulkner, two of the most famous musical gingers on planet Earth, except Michael. I was about to say Michael Hutchence. No, that's not it. Who's the guy out of Simply Red? Mick Hucknall. Sorry, I knew it was a MH thing. Mick Hucknall, he's the other famous ginger. Anyway, my tutor at the time, my sound engineering tutor, he said, "Oh, this is going to be a great time for music and art in general." And he was citing, like the England in the 1960s after the Second World War. We went through quite a long period of financial shitness, basically. America got rich after the Second World War, whereas England became very poor. That's right, the military-industrial complex is an American problem. And also in the 70s, it gave the birth to punk rock and transgressive art movements and neuromantics and all this stuff. As in, and England was a bit of a piss hole in the 70s. The 3-day week and rubbish wasn't picked up. So in these turbulent times, and also in the 90s as well, there was a recession then, and that gave, there was a lot of great music came in the 90s and so forth. So his whole thing was that during these periods of social and economic upheaval and despair, great art comes out of it. Well, I don't know if you remember the 2010s, but nothing good came out of that. It was a lie. It was a fucking lie. In fact, music became more mundane, more safe. The only good, sort of, I'd say, aggressive and good music movements is the stuff that was going on to the latter part of the decade that came out of South Florida. We talk about the rap movement that goes on down there, from XXXTentacion to Denzel Curry to fucking Ski Mask to Lil Pump to and all the other acts that sort of surround him, to Kill Station he's not actually from South Florida, but he's part of that members of he's interwoven into it, but that hardcore underground rap that also became a bit more mainstream. Loads of great artists came out of there. I could go on and on and on if I want, and I will. Wi-Fi Funeral, Craig Zen. Gee. Loads of good shit. But for the most part, the music was crap. Look at music and art that came out in the 2010s after. Look at the stuff in the few years that were after the credit crunch. Films became incredibly safe, consumerist, loud nonsense, by the numbers bullshit. Television became the same. Comedy became incredibly safe and mundane. Ed Sheeran got big after that. That sums it up. If nothing else sums everything up, is Marvel movies and Ed Sheeran. All right, the great decade of resistance through art, rage and art. Ed Sheeran and Marvel films. Are you fucking kidding me? It was a lie. It was a load of bullshit. It was crap. There was no transgressive movement. There was nothing. It was nonsense. It wasn't a great period for art at all. This is the decade where EDM became mainstream. An EDM decade, where even rap and R&B was just completely influenced by EDM. And it was crap. That's it. That's all I got to say on it. It was crap. So now saying the 2020's are likely to spawn beautiful art, film, and music, marked by rage and escapism. And this is an independent article. You know what angle they're coming from. It's a nonsense. Rage and escapism from what? Everything's pretty fucking great. Brexit hasn't even happened yet. It hasn't even happened. Nothing's happened. There's no wars. There was no Great War in the 2010s. In the noughties, and the noughties was a bullshit period in comparison. Probably better films came out in the noughties, but a lot of crap came out in the noughties. Let's face it. Not everything was The Sopranos and The Wire in the noughties. You know what I'm saying? A lot of crap came out in the noughties during that period where we were the period of fear. So after all, it's not that awful. The third man's Harry Lime might have concluded after last month's Tory landslide. You know what the fellow said? In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love, 500 years of democracy and peace, and what did that produce? The Cuckoo Clock. It is a very good line from a very good film. The Third Man, considered to be the greatest British film ever made, which is subjective, of course, but it does top a lot of lists. It's a good point. All right, under the Borgias, they had Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. But I don't think it's the benchmark. I don't think it's the thing to say, well, this is exactly what happens during these times. And also, they're trying to compare what? Boris Johnson and Donald Trump to the Borgias. Get fucked. Now, it may not be entirely fair to bring a fictional character into this, nor indeed is it generally accepted that the Swiss invented the Cuckoo Clock, nor true that the Borgias ruled anything that could be described as Italy, or that the Renaissance flourished under the yoke of cruel tyrants. Its cradle, Florence, was a republic later ruled by the Medicis, who were known for, I believe the Medicis were known for funding art. It's not even the case that Switzerland, for all its neutrality, has managed anything like a half-millennium of peace, but hey, you get the idea. Alright, it's an idea that is based on nothing then. Brilliant. Political turbulence produces great art and radical invention. Stability is one long yawn. It's going to be a hell of a decade. That is, if the political correctness and woke stranglehold over culture is really fought against and people embrace it, then possibly, but it's not going to be the revolution that they think it is, because this is someone writing for The Independent. So what they are thinking is going to happen isn't particularly doesn't really correlate to what you want to happen. What they think, what they want to happen might not be what needs to happen, and might not be what we want to happen. But anyway, well, there is at least some evidence to suggest that may be true. The most divisive period in recent British political history, the Thatcher years, saw direct cultural responses like the rise of illegal raves, anarcho-hippie environmentalist new age culture. I don't think that was a good thing. Raves, good. But that might also have something to do with other stuff, though. So, dystopian comic books, such as Alan Moore's V for Vendetta, let's not forget Judge Dredd. So yes, I get you. A socially conscious TV such as Boys from the Black Stuff. Who remembers that? Politicized pop like the specials Ghost Town and Elvis Costello's Shipbuilding. 2 songs. As well as politicized theatre such as Carol Churchill's Top Girls and Serious Money and Jim Carter's Road. I've never heard of it. I don't go to theatre. But it also produced a colourful array of escapist stage musicals, including Andrew Lloyd Webber's now almost forgotten Cats. Is that supposed to be a joke? Everyone knows about Cats right now, don't they? Plus Duran Duran yachting off in pastel suits. And the phenomenon of the young British artists with Damien Hirst and Tracy Emin as the movement's figureheads. I mean, that's 2 very divisive artists. Even now, whose entrepreneurial verve ought to have had Thatcher purring. Oh yes, I mean, they sold stuff for ridiculous amounts of money. The decade's most enduring television highlight, Brideshead Revisited, meanwhile, looked wistfully back to the Rees-Mogg-like vision of a world defined by class. Is that what he likes? I don't know. Plus, everyone liked the Smiths in the 80s, and look where that ended up. Ooh. I think that's a stab at Morrissey there. A rush and a push, and the land that we stand on is Farage's. They've lost me now. I don't know what they're going on about this, right? Anyway, compare it with the Peaceable Noughties, though, and the counterpoints are in reverse. A decade of Coldplay and Snow Patrol. The Peaceable Noughties? A decade of Coldplay, Snow Patrol, Westlife, Dido was given a shot in the arm by Amy Winehouse and the Libertines, and some Street Smarts by Dizzy Rascal and the Streets. Oh God, you sound really ad. False Jeopardy ruled in reality TV creations such as Big Brother and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. In art, the most noticeable shift was structural. Can I just say, the Peaceable Noughties, as in Peace, peaceable. The 90s was a peaceful time, apart from... Oh, alright, okay. You've got the Gulf War, and obviously the Balkans. That was all pretty hideous. But they're referring to the 80s. What do you have in the 80s? Obviously America was at war with everybody. Like, fuck knows. But Britain... Oh, the Falklands. And how long did that last? Like, a day? The Peaceable Noughties. You're talking about 2 wars that are still going on right now. What are you talking about? Anyway, the most memorable exhibit at the Tate Modern was Olafur Eliasson's The Weather Project, in the radiant presence of which visitors would lie on the floor for an hour at a peak at a time, basking in its serenity. Well, I did anyway, and fell asleep. Wake me up when the Borgias are back. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, does the argument truly stand up, though? You could make a case that the single most important artwork of the 20th century was Malevich's Black Square. The single most important artwork of the 20th century? Don't you mean the 21st century, because that's 2015. What? And the Zero Point of Painting, which came out of the turbulent period and world war that led up to the Russian Revolution. But you could equally say it was John Cage's 433, which was conceived in the bright, positive glow of American victory in the Second World War. It's probably that the century's most influential artist was not Picasso, whose Guernica was made in response to the horrors of the Spanish Civil War, and Andy Warhol, who was obsessed with consumerism, celebrity, and fame. This person's really losing me. The American 60s make a stronger case for the power of expression in tumultuous times. Atomic annihilation loomed as the Civil War gripped, and the US became fatally mired in the Vietnam War, just as conflict erupted at home with the civil rights struggle. Television brought the bloodshed into the living rooms of millions as counterculture formed. Dylan set protest to guitars, acoustic and electric. The Doors' Jim Morrison sang of a desperate land in the end. Intoning the, I would say, yes, 60s and 70s, you could definitely see great stuff, especially the 70s. All the paranoia of the 70s made great films. Great period for filmmaking was the fucking 70s, that's for sure. In America, that is. In America. The rest of the world, they was doing smashing it before then. But okay, I'll skip what they're saying. Drug culture also made its presence felt in the decade and has infected everything since. But was Tom Wolfe's The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test ultimately more significant than Philip K. Dick's novel from the same year, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I don't think so. The decade was bracketed by Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird and Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Oppression is undeniably a powerful creative engine. The African American experience has birthed entirely new musical forms. Yes. Here's a weird thing with African American music, right? Is that when you think about slavery in general, if you think about slavery across the whole span of the human race, everyone's been a slave and everyone's been slavers. Slavery was part and parcel of just humanity for thousands of years until pretty much the last century, the century before, when they went no. Right, slavery is still going on right now, so keep that in mind. But when the Romans enslaved the British and the Spanish and the French, we didn't really create anything. Well, not that I know of, create anything great. We were like, I don't know what happened after that, but I don't remember anything significant coming out of that. But African slaves that went to America, fuck me. It's such a weird thing to think about. I always think about this as like, slavery was bad. Slavery has always been bad. But in particular, the enslavement of Africans shipped to America and the Caribbean gave us a hell of a lot of good fucking shit, didn't it? It's such a weird thing. You think it's bad, but would you have not wanted it to happen? Let's think. Would you want to live in a world where there hadn't been the transatlantic slave trade? Because we would not have half the good music. No, fuck that. 90% of the bangers that we have today. You would even have Mariah Carey. I mean, what the fuck? Do you want to live in a world where that didn't happen? It's a tough one, isn't it? The gift and the curse, the yin and the yang. African American music is I've always loved it because it's just like this. It's the balance of the universe in all its glory. Because when you think about its history, the same thing. In fact, the birth of rock and roll is the same thing. It's the same thing. The birth of rock and roll, baby. Because without, if America hadn't been selling weapons to both the Allied troops and the Nazis, then they wouldn't have got rich as fuck, and therefore the birth of the teenager wouldn't have happened in the 50s, and therefore you wouldn't have had Elvis, because no one would be buying his records because they wouldn't have had no money, and therefore you'd have no rock and roll, no rock music, no hip-hop, no nothing. You wouldn't have the modern music industry if it wasn't for America making money off people's misery in war. So you got to hand it to the Americans. With slavery, they gave us brilliant music. With them not wanting to pick sides for the first couple of years of the Second World War, they made great music. So hats off to them. Anyway, the period when the latter was gestating in the 70s, block parties, the New York City projects, undisturbed by A&R men and market forces, was surely its most important. The suspicion now is that anything vaguely new would be strangled in the act of emerging by the rush to herald it, market it, and monetize it. True. Hip-hop, fully grown, could give the voice to pretty much any emotion, including deep and abiding anger, and we hate po-po, want to kill us dead in the streets for sure. As Kendrick Lamar put in 2015, well, you would quote Kendrick Lamar, wouldn't you, you hipster prick? Here is the land that never gave a damn about a brother like me, in the words of Public Enemy 1988. Well, you really are a white person that likes hip-hop, aren't you? In the UK, the garage... Come on, it's so true. This is Public Enemy and Kendrick Lamar. Come on, man. You're not quoting Trick Daddy, are you? In the UK, the garage scene mutated into grime, which has a similar articulacy. Rage has been a potent artistic drive in other contexts too. In I like the way he just skipped over grime, like going, oh, grime, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you just forgot about grime, did you? Anyway, in the 70s, Belfast, at the height of the Troubles, stiff little fingers lashed out in all directions, especially at the sectarian paramilitaries that drew young people in to die for their important cause. Stuff their fucking armies, sang Jake Burns. Killing isn't my idea of fun. Well, that's why you'd never make a rap album, my friend. There are warning signs aplenty, though, that anger and hatred may turn out to be the dominant emotions of the 2020s. I think it's been the dominant emotion of the 2010s, hasn't it? Which suggests that any artistic response employing them isn't going to help. We've just lived through a decade in which it became clear that rage is easy to trigger via mass and social media. Here we go. Activating the body's biochemistry to foment fury has become as exploitable as putting jumps into horror movies to flood the body with a fight or flight chemicals to intensify fear. Horror, porn, and hatred are biochemical events. Everything's a biochemical event, you twat. Getting people angry has become the go-to tactic of the press and political demagogues. No, it's a human emotion. A go-to tactic. It's something that marketing has discovered because of the social media age. Rage bait is what works. But don't be writing about it as if the press and the political demagogues. It's the tactics by fucking everybody, including you. Okay. Let's not forget this. Don't forget, you are responsible too. Knowing that anger holds the attention can be directed to affect change. I don't think change can be affected through anger. Not in a good way. You know, I think anger generally leads to, no one ever said, in an uncontrollable bout of rage, he solved the world's problems. That doesn't happen, does it? That's not a statement that happens. It worked on the people in a nation with the best deal in the European Union. Oh, that was us. Here we go. And it can work on the people with the most admired public service broadcaster in the world. Oh, is that us too? Someone in a room somewhere is probably thinking of a doing word right now for a 3-word slogan that makes it seem we can all achieve something by dismantling the BBC. Watch those attacks keep rolling in, and we are all susceptible to manipulation. I literally don't know what this prick's going on about. So maybe not the return of punk rock and shock art. Let's face it though, punk rock probably at the time was a bit cringy, and it is, isn't it? It was, the Sex Pistols were essentially a boy band. They were a manufactured band, like the Monkees. Remember the Monkees? Like McFly. Anyway, but I'm not pretending to know what decade will look and sound like. Art and politics have already been interacting in surprising ways in the 2010s. Artists such as Chris, formerly Christine and the Queens, have made pop a radical art form, while the most visible UK... Have made pop a radical art? I don't know who that is, but I bet it's crap. I bet it is. The most visible UK political artist of the era, Banksy, is not even considered enough of an artist to get a Turner Prize nomination. Right, I'm going to throw this out there right now. I am going to do a whole new thing called the most overrated. And Banksy is on that list. Banksy is political, artistic cringe. Just the embodiment of what is wrong. Like, my goodness. Fucking Banksy. Anyway. Television has struggled with social consciousness as audiences switch off the first whiff of being preached at. But we're in a golden age of reactive theatre, where directors and writers are challenging everything from blame culture to the criminal justice system. Britain, the 2020s. Britain, the 2020s, presided over by the likes of the Home Secretary Cruella Patel. That's not her actual name, is it? Doesn't look like fun. As the world burns, the schism between old and young is widening. As Dylan once said, your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. These perilous times could just be a catalyst for new work, new forms, new ways. We shall see. There was a hell of a lot going on in that article, and they didn't really sell. I mean, it was all over the place. I don't know what was going on some of the times, but bullshit. No, 2020's. I'll end this on that. I'll end this on this. If the 2020s is going to be this, it's going to spawn beautiful art, films, and music, then it's got to be the stuff that people don't like. It's got to be the stuff that offends people. Because look at this, from the Sex Pistols to Nine Inch Nails to Nirvana. Yeah, I'm dropping in stuff that I like, you know what I'm saying? But to look at all the films that cause controversy, Clockwork Orange to The Life of Brian to fucking whatever. Right? It's stuff that the mainstream media and mainstream culture does not like. That winds people up, that offends people, that upsets people. You know, I remember in the noughties when, you know, they had bands like the Libertines and Razorlight and shit like that. Literally had 15-year-olds liking the same music that their parents liked. I was like, that ain't how it goes down, my friend. The music you listen to when you're a kid is supposed to make your parents say, turn that shit off. That's what it's supposed to do. It's noise. The comedy you like, the films you like, it's supposed to make people go, oh, it's supposed to fucking cause a terrible reaction. And what art produces that kind of reaction right now in the mainstream? Nothing. The nearest we got is, what, Joker? The last few years? No, all we got is YouTubers pissing people off. Or political speakers. People like Milo. Or even Jordan Peterson's the nearest thing we got to the fucking Sex Pistols, for goodness sake. You know, I think that I like quite a few things what the guy says, you know, he's a very intelligent man. But that's literally, that's our counterculture. That's Paul Joseph Watson. This is the stuff that pisses people off. These are our rock stars. And these are people who are in the political sphere to a certain extent. And it's like, because look at our rock star, you know, we got pro-EU rappers and shit. I mean, it's fucking retarded. I mean, in the 90s, you wouldn't be pro-EU. In the decade of proper transgressive, aggressive music. Scary music. Music that terrified people. From Nine Inch Nails to Marilyn Manson to Nirvana to whoever. Public Enemy, NWA, Ice-T. This stuff was scary. This terrified people. You show me some shit that terrifies people now. You think Stormzy terrifies the masses? Terrifies mainstream media? They fucking suck his dick. Even the Daily Mailers suck his dick. That's where we're at now. But YouTubers and people YouTubers and people, public speakers and people writing books. Do you know, these are the only people that are terrifying people. From Sargon of Akkad to fucking Milo Yiannopoulos to whoever. These are the only people that terrify people. Do you know what I mean? We ain't got, there's nothing like that in music. Nothing like that in film. Nothing like that in comedy. Except some of the old school lot. But nothing new. There's no one new. It fucking needs to be. You know what I mean? There needs to be. I want to see a group, a rapper, someone come out. I mean, there are rappers that are kind of... I mean, XXXTentacion was... I guess would terrify certain people in a certain way. But he's dead, man, so we can't rely on it. I'd like to see a rock group or, you know, or a rapper, someone that came out who was like fucking terrifying. And the only way that'd be is if he supported Trump. That's where we're at now. That's the only thing that would terrify the masses. As in, I'm talking about the mainstream media masses. You see? I fucking love, like, just a guy that comes out and raps and go, I love guns, I love Trump, and I love sucking dick. A dude. Just to terrify. I want someone that fucking terrifies everybody. It makes everyone go, it's saying, he's got to be Jewish, black, gay, and he loves Trump. That's what he's got to do. He loves guns, but he also loves Greta Thunberg. Because then he's going to piss everyone off. You have to piss it, you're going to have to piss off everybody. Because guess what? Maybe it's me. Do you know what? It's going to be me. It's just going to have to be me. Look, I have no problem with Islam. And I have no problem with Israel. I love Jews. I think Israel has the right to exist. I think they have the right to protect themselves. I also think the majority of Muslims are fucking great. And I think there's a very small minority of lunatics who have really been amplified too much. A bit like just anyone that's on Twitter. You know what I mean? But that's going to wind people up going, I support Israel. Guess what? I support Israel and Palestine. How about that? I think that's the most controversial thing that could ever happen in the 2010s. We need something, but no, I just don't think she hasn't. I mean, this she. I don't know why I'm thinking this is a she that wrote this. I don't know why. Chris Harvey's probably a dude. I don't know. But I'm saying, look, if we're going to have a decade of great art, we need to bring back the terror. We need to make it we need some terrifying shit. We need something that's terrifying, man, and shit like that, you know what I'm saying?